Great. Good afternoon. It's Friday. It's 7 p.m. I'm Selena Teams. This is Successful You here to share my experience at the New Voices, New Rooms conference bookstore tour, which took place on August 3rd. I believe it's August 3rd. And there were a couple of tours, and I selected one that took me to three niche bookstores. And I really enjoyed the experience. And I had promised to come back and share some answers with um, my friends on Facebook who follow me, and to bring back some answers to questions that they had for this bookstore tour experience. So, um, first, I'm going to talk about the stores that I went to, and then I'm going to share with you some of the key factors that I picked up from that experience. So, I went to 44th and 3rd, which is a very cool bookstore dedicated to BIPOC voices. It's named after our 44th president, Barack Obama, and the third stands for literacy, legacy. Oh gosh, I forgot it again. There are three L's: life, literacy, and legacy. I hope I didn't I think I messed it up, but I'm gonna put it in the notes. But this was a really really nice store, and I was able to have a conversation with the owner, and we it was a beautiful setup. So if you get a chance to go to 44th and 3rd in Atlanta, you won't regret the experience. It's a family owned store, a husband, wife, and daughter, and they just welcomed us very warmly and took the time to discuss how they engage with independent authors. And so, what I learned there is that they have a dedicated space where authors can have a book event and book signing, and the author has to demonstrate the ability to attract people to that event and sell books. And I will check in with them and get the exact policy on how they work with authors. So I don't want to, try to go off my memory and mess that up. But it's a very generous um, opportunity that they give for authors because they sell their books on consignment, and it's advantageous. But the trick is that you really have to demonstrate that your book is sellable, and I think that's a pretty cool open door with 44th and 3rd that a lot of bookstores don't. They're not so inclined to work with authors, but 44th and 3rd, it's a Black owned store, and they welcome indie authors that are promoting books that are quality and that are sellable. So the other bookstore I went to is called Bookish ATL. And this is a queer owned, woman led, community focused bookstore. And it's East Atlanta's indie bookstore. And this is a quaint store that has lots of what they call sideline items. Excuse me, these are candles and stickers and pins and every kind of accessory, bookish type accessory that you could think of. And one thing that's unique about their store is they create their own branded merchandise. So they have like an in house designer for their t shirts and their tote bags. And so they are able to generate a good amount of revenue for their business with low overhead because they do that in house. And I thought that was really cool. And I shopped at both of these stores. So I bought Wealthy and Well Known from 44th and 3rd. And at Bookish, I bought a puzzle that is designed by a black artist, and the company that produces the puzzles is a black owned company. So, and this was a great experience. I really enjoyed Bookish. The owner was so kind to us, and I think you should check them out when you're in Atlanta. I'm sure you're going to find something you love in that store. And the third store I went to is called Acapella Books. And Acapella Books is unique in that it's a used bookstore. So I am fortunate enough to be on the journey of opening a bookstore. My bookstore is called Black Wall Street Books. It is a pop-up model, and up until stepping into a cappella books, I truly had only considered new books, um, not used. But the owner was so kind to explain to me how good the profit margin is on used books, and how it is, how he makes his selection. And he has expanded his store from a corner to the building next to the corner and the property across the street. So Acapella Books is growing, and that's an indication. The fact that they are outgrowing each space that they get into is a great indication that that business model works well. And so he shared with me that he stays away from books that are not evergreen, if you will, like the real estate strategy that's working today may not be around in 5 or 10 years. And a particular investment strategy like options are hot right now. And, before it was ETFs and then it's crypto. And so topics that are very high turnover, that have a lot of transition, that have a lot of modification over time. Those books he avoids, but books with content doesn't that's not subject to time and politics and things of that nature. Those are the books that he gravitates to, and it's a beautiful little bookstore. Everywhere you look is books, and I super enjoyed it. So this store has one, maybe about 10% of its inventory is new books in one section, and then the rest of the store is used books. And he has some very unique and collectible and rare books there as well. There are books like locked up in a case, like books that were signed by rock musicians and things like that. So it was just so I was so appreciative of the fact that each one of these owners took time to explain what they do and why they do it. And that brings me to the the point that booksellers love their businesses. And I believe it's probably the only business I've come across that they don't compete against one another. It's like a family. You're a bookstore, I'm a bookstore, we're in the same city. But there is this unmistakable support that they provide to one another. And these particular stores are very niche. Like we talked about a queer owned bookstore, we talked about a used bookstore, and we talked about a BIPOC focused bookstore. So it's just a wonderful experience. And one thing about 44th and 3rd, they provide employment opportunities for the college students at Spellman, and Morehouse. So it was really cool to, to see that they are invested in the communities that they serve. And because they are invested in the communities that they serve, they're looking to have relationships with authors who are invested as well. And so that's, I feel like a good segue for about the various booksellers about, what is it that an independent author can do to get their book on the shelf in an indie bookstore. So I'm going to go through my list. I made a post about this in my Publish for Profits Facebook group, but I'm going to walk through it now. So basically, um, having a quality book is bare minimum. I mean, this book must be professionally produced. And you may have the skills to edit your own book, and you may have taken an Adobe InDesign class, or you may be a certified graphic designer. The point is that the book that you would ask an independent bookseller to shelve, take up their precious shelf space, that book needs to have the probability of selling just like one of the major publishing house books on their shelves. Every square inch, I was told by the owner of Baldwin and Co. that every square inch of your bookshelf in a store is prime real estate. And you cannot afford to put books on those shelves that are not going to sell. And so, because profit margins are very thin for booksellers, it's important that they take up that space with books that can sell. So, you need to be able to demonstrate that this is a quality book that has the ability to sell. So, we're starting with that. So, one of the first things, number one, is support their store as a buyer. They're often, the owner is often filling every position in that store. They're the cleanup, the person who cleans, they're the person who checks you out, they're the person who shelves the book, they're the person who, they shelve it and sell it, right? They're often they're wearing all the hats. And it's tough because people do come in bookstores and browse and leave without buying. So you should support the store that you want to support you by shelving your book. Your support means a lot to bookstores. There are days where they don't make enough sales to cover the salary overhead of themselves and the people that work for them. So there are some days where they clear it, and there are some days that they don't. So independent bookstores. Okay, that's number one. Support them as a buyer and don't just come in with an ask for them to sell your book. Think about a win-win situation when you approach them. The second thing is make it easy for them to order your book through their catalog channel. So that means that your book needs to be available in more places than Amazon, because they're not going to buy it off of Amazon. Amazon is their outsized colors, the major big box sellers, and that's Barnes and Noble, brick and mortar, and then Amazon online. There may be some other major bookstores that compete against them. But when you understand their relationship, then you understand what's important to them. So make it easy for them to order your book. They're not going to go and follow a unique process to get your book when 90% of the books that they order or in this one catalog, if you will, and that would be Ingram. So you want to have your book seen on Ingram, available on Ingram. You want to be found on Edelweiss, and you may want to have your book on bookshop.org. So these are kind of places that they utilize, and there are some others. Um, then you have to demonstrate that you actively are selling your book. Um, so the person who publishes their book and publishes it on Amazon, it's available on Amazon, and they do no sales activity other than hoping that people see it on Amazon and sharing the link. That is not compelling enough for a bookseller to know that this is a sellable book. If you want them to consider you, they're going to come and take a look at your social media engagement. They are going to take a look at what your following is like. And are people engaged? You may really want to show them some proof and evidence of book sales. Show them evidence that you are showcasing your book in places other than just online, because they are brick and mortar, and so you want to you want to make that effort to let them know that if I take up time to host an event for you to sell books, then you're not relying solely on my customer traffic. I need you to bring some customer traffic with you. And that is a more believable proposition if you've done it before. So the I also already mentioned that Amazon is their outsized competition. So then, when it comes to them being able to order your book, they need to have a level of discount to stock your book, and they need to have the ability to return copies of your book that don't sell. That's the way it works with the other books that they sell. So and you may come across some situations where they will have a different arrangement, but more often than not, being the bathroom cleaner, the register runner, the person who opens and closes and cleans the store, don't give them another job of having to follow a different process to get your book. Find out how they get their books and make sure you show up on that channel and offer them a discount that would make it worth them shelving your book. And I would say this, you may get a much bigger royalty on Amazon because Amazon can afford to offer you that because they're doing so much business. But if your book is not selling, what good is a 70% royalty if you're not getting anything? So if you have to give a bookstore a 55% discount, well, 55% of them ordering 15 or 10 of your books or 5 of your books in bulk is better than 70% of nothing. So, and I'm assuming that you want to be in bookstores because you're having a tough time selling online. And whether or not you're struggling to sell online, you still should not ignore the physical brick and mortar venue of book sales as just as much as you give considering to the online virtual book selling space. So give them a discount that would allow them to make a profit off selling your book. Because if it's not profitable, they're not going to do it. They're not in charity. You're not in charity either. So think about that. Think about that. The discount might feel a little steep, but 70% of nothing versus 55% of 10 is a difference. So basically, and if you want to have a signing, we talked about that. It's booksellers, the profit margins are thin. So if a book can only be sold for $2.97. They can't sell that book for $25 and make a profit. They can only sell it for that list price. That said, bookstores make their money in other ways. And one of the major ways they make their money is by events, by having authors come to the store. And if you have a big enough following, people who like you will come too. And so the bigger your audience and the more engaged your audience and following, the more likely they will be willing to allow an event at their store for you. You want the exposure, they want the traffic. That's a win win proposition for you and them. And so, one of the things that I have heard expressed by booksellers is that sometimes the authors don't pull the weight in making sure the event is successful. And as I mentioned, as busy as they are with running the store and managing the store and all the things that they do, drumming up um, traffic and promote it, and they will promote. They will promote an event, but they need to know that you're just as vested in promoting that event. They don't want to be the only one promoting an event to sell your book. So if you want a independent bookstore to host an event, come with a marketing plan and a strategy and with some quantifiable numbers of the people you want to reach and what you're going to do to bring at least, I don't know, 15, 20 people to the store. When I was in bookseller school, one of the comments was made is they really want to vet and make sure that you're going to come through, because there was a situation of an author who said, yes, I'm bringing my family and friends and this number of people are coming. Well, all those people had already bought the book. When the book launched, those family and friends bought their copies. So it didn't benefit the bookseller for those family and friends to come because they didn't buy books. So if you're going to have an event, have real buyers that you are bringing to the event to buy books. That's the point of hosting an event, to sell books. So you bring buyers and they're going to add their promotion power to your promotion, and you can create a great synergistic win. And if you do an amazing job, there's this other category of events that I'm going to dive into more called salons. And that's a whole nother exploration that I'm excited to talk about. But you will have more opportunities to engage with that store and other stores. So make sure you're approaching a store that that specializes in the genre that you want to sell. If your book is young adult, don't pitch a children's bookstore. If your book is, conservative politics, don't approach a bookstore that is the opposite of that. So find your find your audience and approach bookstores that cater to your audience, because those people would have a good time visiting that bookstore as well. So basically, oh, here's the other thing. Bookstores have policies on their website for how they approve independent authors or authors for book signings. And that's there for a reason, right? Because it's almost like having to answer the same questions every time a new author approaches you as a bookseller. Your time is precious. You got to make sure that your products aren't walking out the door. You got to make sure that your customers are behaving. You have to make sure that you are there to answer their questions so that they will make a purchase. And so entertaining every single independent author that is seeking an opportunity for book placement is time consuming. And so they've taken the time to create a policy and post it on their website. Always check the bookstore's website, find out what their policy is, and comply with it. Um, and make the approach respectfully. Um, I don't know one author who has been a bully or over what do you call it, over entitled in an approach to a bookstore. But I do hear those stories. I do hear stories of authors who, won't take no for an answer. Authors who will approach the owner, get a no, and then approach the staff in order to get a yes. Um, I don't know those authors; those are not my people. So, but I would say very specifically, look at their, if they have a policy, the policy is there for a reason. And the policy is there to make sure that they can run their business efficiently and that they can serve you, if you meet the criteria. And so doing that makes for a good relationship with the bookstore. Find their policy, understand their policy, follow their policy, and hopefully you'll get a yes. And if you don't get a yes, there are other bookstores. So those are the those are the do's and don'ts that I learned in having conversations with booksellers. And I would highly recommend that you visit 44th and 3rd. I highly recommend that you visit Bookish ATL. And I highly recommend that you visit Acapella Books in Atlanta, Georgia. So, hope you enjoyed this content. If you did, please like, please subscribe, and please activate the notification so that you can know when I'm going to produce additional content around the self publishing ecosystem. I'm Selena Teams. It is my pleasure to have spent about 30 minutes with you to talk about what I love, and that's books, book selling, and business. So thank you and enjoy your Friday night.